question.
I'm Irving Herwood, Director of Digital Solutions. As it relates to the Smart City program, we would have started installation of Wi-Fi access points in November, and we are approximately 25% complete. As it relates to the density, we are at present looking at the green areas and the areas where persons congregate. However, as part of this project, we are looking to do areas that have housing population, like the Nelson Street area, the Reed Street, etc., Subtle Street areas, because when the project started, we were mostly looking at getting persons back into Bridgetown and giving them free Wi-Fi so that there can be connectivity as they move around town. We would have spoken to not just tourism, we would also have been engaging, in discussions with 2 vendors to look at how we can monetize this project. And we're looking at how we can do things like advertise on the Wi-Fi, etc. So those are 2 areas that we're looking at to try to monetize this project.
Thank you, sir. My last question relates to the massive undertaking that the Honourable Minister described in the project called PSMP. This is obviously hugely important as the mandate of government is to facilitate economic growth, and obviously one of the key inputs to growth in the economy is productivity, efficiency, and ease of business. But as your ministry seeks to undertake on this operation, whereby obviously citizens' data will be migrated into the space, how is your ministry going to deal with the obvious question of security of citizens' data?
Excellent question. As I would have mentioned in my opening statement, cybersecurity is one of the most critical things that's capturing the attention of our ministry at this point in time. And not only cybersecurity, but data protection. We have even implemented a data protection commissioner who is Lisa Graves, and she is right now a team of 1, but we're looking to build out an entire team around data protection, because we understand that once our citizens start to interact with government services going forward, we're going to have a lot more data coming into the system, and we must be able to protect that data so that citizens are encouraged to continue to utilize the services. We also understand in the environment such as this, where because of COVID and because of increased use of digital technologies and in the internet in general, there's the proliferation of fraud and different activities that take place out there in the IT space. So we are very mindful of the need not only to provide a secure environment through data security, but also to be able to ensure that our data is as secure as it is, and that persons can feel secure in putting their data in our hands. I believe that should suffice at this point in time. But just to say and just to underscore that data protection is one of the critical things that's taking the attention of the ministry at this point in time.
Thank you, Minister. Chair, I oblige you.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just 2 questions for the Honourable Minister and his team. The first one relates to the shared services subprogram 067. It was referred to before in the reference to the Smart City program or project. The question I have because I recognize that there is funding, obviously, in the coming year's estimates, and a pretty sizable increase in subsequent year in terms of the forward estimates, 23-24 and 24-25. Now, this government, from 2018, in our manifesto of 2018, spoke to a focus on towns and building out towns. So there was a theme coming through in relation to towns. Now, we also have the work and report of the Thorne Commission, that groundbreaking piece of research, and I think it will fashion what Barbados looks like in the future. The chair of that commission knows exactly how I feel about that work. But that report also has or makes special recommendations in relation to towns generally. The question I have, while we're starting with Bridgetown, and I agree we ought to be commencing any program like this with our capital city, the question is, what is the plan of the ministry in relation to the other towns that will need similar attention in relation to making those towns smart, making Wi-Fi available to both the commercial and the residential stakeholders who occupy, who live in, who work in, who earn in those spaces? That's my first question. Speaking about towns. Spitestone included, but I was really thinking about Oistins and
Spitestone.
some of the other towns.
You gotta be specific. You gotta be specific, honorable member.
No. Seriously, I'm speaking
Towns
about
in general.
towns generally, because the Labour Party's manifesto and the Thorne Commission report really has a flavor of addressing our urban spaces. So I'm speaking about towns generally. But I represent St. Peter and Spitestone, so I mean, that goes without saying.
Thank you so much. Yes, honorable member, you're absolutely correct. There currently is a focus on Bridgetown as a capital city, and you can call it a pilot if you were. It is really going to be this gold standard as to how we can then roll this same initiative out across all of the other towns. The whole idea, the objective, and the purpose of this ministry is to make all of Barbados smart. So it's not just, we call it the Smart City Initiative because we're highlighting the need for our capital city where there's not only the hub of commercial activity, but there's also a dense population, dense demographics in that area. And not only that, it is one of our, I guess, key tourist attractions because tourists will go there naturally to shop and to partake of our various activities and the cultural components. But so that we're going to center our energy there first. And with that, then we can then replicate across the other towns across the length and breadth of Barbados, not least of which is Spitestone. But I will hand over at this point in time to once again, Mr. Ovenherod, and he will give some more flesh to that matter.
As was said by the minister, this can be seen as a pilot. And while during the course of this financial year, we were not fortunate to have the funds available to us to pursue the other towns, we are really looking now at seeing how we can fully roll out this project. The access points and the Wi-Fi is only a part of this project. You would know that we are also looking at things like augmented reality, which would be the apps that would give all that information to visitors, etc. We are also expecting to work with the Ministry of Public Service, the Ministry of Public Works, as it relates to parking, smart parking. So these are the two initiatives that we are looking at during the course of the coming financial year. And As we complete those, we will then be in a position to look at the lessons learned, etc. And if given the resources, we'll roll out to all the towns that you need us to roll out.
Thank you very much, Minister. I think I discerned from the response that what was said may not have been written down as part of the plan, but in response to my question, that is the route that you are going. That is just the impression that I got, and I hope, therefore, if I'm correct, that you would make what has been said by yourself and your officer officially a part of the plan, that the focus will be on rolling out in the towns as well. I will point out that in many of the town centers, particularly those identified not just in the manifesto but also in the Thorn Commission report, because the Thorn Commission report identifies additional town centers, there are also relatively densely populated areas that would definitely benefit because there are residences, and there's also business economic activity, including the tourism activity that Minister referred to. My second question has to do with the export thrust. And I'm really asking this because in my interactions with Barbadians as well as constituents, residents of St. Peter, there sometimes is the feeling that pursuing manufacturing and exporting is probably not a good use of resources because our input costs are so high. I sometimes speak by way of explanation to pursuing niches as opposed to trying to move into general manufacturing and exports on a large scale. I'd like to hear from you, Minister, or maybe from Mr. Hill, what are, assuming that I'm correct, if I'm not correct, then you can explain why I'm not, but assuming that I'm correct, I'd like to get a perspective on what are those niche areas that BIDC and the ministry are pursuing in terms of our manufacturing. I know we spoke about rum earlier, but there may be others that we are pursuing, and I'd like to hear some discussion, some information sharing on that matter. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Minister. You're absolutely correct in your interpretation of the situation. Exporting is critical. And of course, some of the areas that we have as a legacy have used or chosen to focus on for export, some of those industries now need to be pivoted. We need to, in some ways, build those out further where we can and exhaust those in new and innovative ways. But we also need to pivot towards new industries and nascent industries. Of course, we have green and green tech and renewable energies and a whole host of other areas within the life sciences portfolio of activities as well. I would let the CEO delve into those further and to give you some specifics in terms of those nascent industries. But just to agree with you 100% that we as a ministry are going to be seeing how we can use the innovation side of this ministry to marry with the industry side so that and science, so that we can build out new, robust,